Hey guys, and welcome to another episode from us at the Distant Vale. This week Harry is painting the Fusilier Paramedic from the Army Painter paint set, Pan Oceania Infinity the Universe. And he's going to take you through the step-by-step guide that the Army Painter have created for it, and hopefully you enjoy.
Hey team, welcome back. We've been given a very special opportunity today. We'll be painting the Fusilier Paramedic, an exclusive model for the Pan Oceania Infinity set. And what we'll be doing today is we'll be following along with the written instructions given in the Army Painter exclusive model painting guide. So first step here, we need to get some base colours down. Now I wanted to try and go for something a little bit different. So I'm using some of their Australia green, so it's the green provided in the box set. And I'm just airbrushing that on as a sort of shadow tone before spraying over top of this with a matte white to get a nice zenithal with a green shadow. The green here is going to act as a lovely shade tone, which when we spray over top with the Pan O blue, is going to give us a lovely green tinted shadow, giving us a nice dark color without losing any intensity. I'm hoping it's going to look quite good, but step one is done. We just need that blue covering everything with that zenithal with the green and white, giving a little bit of pre-detailing. The second step here is we're adding the first lights and shadows. We're going to neatly apply some hyper power blue, that is the blue speed paint included in the box set. And this seems to be a bit of a new formulation from previous Army Painter speed paints. It is much richer and seems to have a much more aggressive flow. So while it stains the highlights quite a rich blue, it is very readily sitting in the cracks, and with a highly detailed model like this, it's really doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, giving us both the saturation of the blue and some pre-shadowing. We can see here already after that's dried, it is very much uplifting that model quickly. With blue armor based and shadowed, we're going to move on to the next step, which is painting the trousers. We'll be applying the Spec Ops brown as a base color to the trousers areas, and we'll also be using this a little bit later on just to color in some of the brown leather detailing, and that I'm going to use on the side satchels and a little bit on the back satchel. And with the leather detailing base coated, we're on to the first step on painting the white armor panels. We're painting these with a mix of 50% matte black and 50% matte white. The two matte sort of light and dark colors included in the box set are quite potent, and they seem to have really, really good coverage. So I was a little bit worried that maybe the white and the black were going to run and be a bit thin. I haven't found that at all with these paint sets. They seem to be a one, sometimes two coat coverage is more than enough to base coat these white panels on the shoulders, the elbows, and a little bit on the shins. The last step now, as we come on to this initial lights and shadows, is detailing in the weapons and the other details not already painted with the matte black. This is just to make sure that we don't have any of that bleed through of the undercoated blue, and whilst this is going to effectively negate the initial zenithal, because a lot of this is the small details, having it be present on the underlying armors and the rest of the sort of more blue details means that we will have a very easy reference point for some of those lighting areas later on.
Hey guys, me again. You're getting used to me randomly turning up in the middle of videos now. If you haven't subscribed already, really appreciate it. It'd be awesome. And a massive thank you to Corvus Belli for sending us these paint sets through for us to trial and have a go at painting Infinity Universe miniatures.
And with just a little bit of cleanup, we are now finished with the initial colors and tones on this model. Following along with the instructions, the next step here is the second highlights. The first thing we're going to be doing this secondary highlights to is the armor. So coming back in with just a pure Pan O blue, we'll be covering a good part of the colored areas using the underlying zenithal as a bit of a guide, but making sure that we are really paying attention to detail when it comes to the edges and being quite deliberate with placing a little extra color here. We will be highlighting this up much more aggressively for some nice sort of non-metallic metal almost coloring, and we're going to make sure we've got a good base layer of lighter blue to work with. With that, you can already see just how much just applying that pure Pan O blue really helps to make the details pop on those blue armor plates. The next thing we're going to do from here is start to highlight the white armor plates. The guide says to make a 15% matte black and 85% matte white mix. I would be going with just a light grey, and when I'm mixing on the wet palette here, I'm going more for that vibe of a intermediary step between that 50-50 grey and what I imagine will be a pure white as a final highlighting step later on. The exact grey that you sort of mix here isn't as important as some of the other detailing because it is such a small area. You can have a bit of a steeper jump between the two colour steps for these kind of small details. Next step in the guide, we are going to be colouring in the plates and trousers. These are the bicep plates and highlighting on the trousers. So for that, we're going to need some of that Australia green, and we're going to be using this to colour in the biceps plates and a few other little details around the bags on the model, just to add a little variation to all the brown we have going on. With this, we're just looking for a nice solid covering base on both those bicep plates, and I'm doing the sort of the lids on some of the leather pouches. I also noticed that while it's coming through with that Australia green, there's going to be a few other little pieces of leather baggage that I've missed in that black detailing, and that I kind of overpainted into some of the trouser areas. So I'm just going through and touching up those leather details and make sure we've got a good solid brown undercoat on the trousers so everything looks nice and clean, rather than letting those greens spill over a little bit earlier than I'd like them to. For the trousers, we just need to make a bit of a wash. We're mixing a 50% matte black and 50% Australia green, and thinning that down with a fair chunk of water and just a few drops of medium and airbrush thinner, just to make sure that the paint is behaving like a wash would and settling into those recesses after it's tinted the brown. We're now up to step 5 in the painting guide, which is the third highlights. For the blue armor third highlights, we're going to be mixing a 50% Pan O blue with 50% matte white. I'll be using this to add more light to the armor and making sure that whilst we're applying this much paler blue, that we're reducing the amount of surface area that we're applying it to. We're really trying to focus those highlights onto the more upward facing areas of the armor that we expect to catch a bit more light. And the guide says you want to be insisting on the edges to help improve the definition, which is just a rather more complicated way of saying we want to make sure that the details are popping by applying that very thin highlight to the areas we want to be drawing attention to. third set of highlighting done on the blue armor, we can really see that detail, and almost like the light is concentrating on those upward raised edges of the armor. Next thing we want to do now is we're going to start to highlight the trousers. The guide says we want to be highlighting internal and external halves of the trousers differently, with the external halves being highlighted back up with the original brown, Spec Ops brown, and the internal ones that I'm doing here with the lighter brown, Artrema tan. The reason why I'm starting with the lighter one is it is generally easier to tone something back down by painting over a light color than it is to try to aggressively highlight it back up with light paints over dark, given that light paints tend to have a poorer coverage. As we come to step 6 of the painting guide, we're going to be coming on to the smaller details and applying highlights to them. I will start off here with some pure matte white, and we'll be applying this to the white armor plates. This final highlight is really about trying to define the volumes of the more rounded surfaces of this white armor, and trying to apply a little bit more detail with a very thin highlight along the edges of these armor plates. The next highlight on the bicep plates is going to take a sort of 2/3 Australia green and a 1/3 neutral flesh, mixing that up and applying that again in a sort of almost volume highlight. And by that I mean we're not just painting the most upraised surface, we're painting the area which would catch the most light naturally along that curved surface. We're then going to come back in with some of the 50-50 matte white and matte black that I already have on the palette here, and we're using that to highlight up the equipment and metal parts. So for this would be the weapon, both in the hand, across the back, the strapping across the front of the chest, and a few of the other little details on the medic pouch underneath his weapon on the back. Now, I generally am not a big fan of edge highlighting, and you can see here I kind of got mad and I grabbed my nice wide brush, and I'm using this to do a very, very light dry brushing of those detailing on the back. Saves a bit of time and make sure I don't have to do too many edge highlights on small details. With that step done, we're going to come into the step 7, the finishing touches on the armor. I'm going to come back in with that hyper power blue, that blue speed paint. I'm going to carefully highlight the outlines of the shadows, which sounds a little counterintuitive, but because this blue is so heavy and rich, it helps to bring some saturation and some color back into that blue that we've applied a lot of desaturated pale white blues on. So to get a little bit more control, I did dilute that blue down, making sure I can focus most of that onto the shadows. And then I'm going to make an even paler blue highlight tone with a 10% Pano blue and 90% matte white, just to do the final little detailing on the armor. Now, because I've just come in with that almost blue wash, you have to be very careful and make sure not to overpaint, because it's very hard to walk it back this far into the painting. Next step, we're going to come on to the face details. We're going to start by applying a Veruna tan skin, the base skin tone provided in the box set, and we're going to apply this all over the face because it's the only piece of skin showing. And we're going to add a little bit of matte black here to colour in that facial hair. This paramedic is modelled with a fairly thick, dark beard. Much like myself, you want to make sure you get a good bit of coverage so it stands out from the rest of the skin tones on the face. We're also going to look a little bit here, take a little bit of matte white, and we're going to add that to any areas we wish to brighten up with the glow effect paint that comes in the set, with that white being a nice base to add any fluorescent colours later on. Next step on the face, we're going to be making a wash out of Spec Ops brown. For that, we're just going to take a few drops of the brown paint, add quite a lot of water to it, and we're going to add a few drops of airbrush flow improver. This is, as you can see on the palette, going to take that paint that's beating up with the amount of water and just watch it break the surface tension and spread it out on the wet palette. So it's going to do a very similar thing where it's going to just flow a bit more easily into some of those details on the face. While we wait for it to dry, I'm just going to mix up a 1/3 brown, 2/3 black, and we're going to use this to highlight some of the facial hair, focusing a bit of attention towards the chin and the corners of the moustache, where light tends to catch, and most men's facial hair tends to be a little bit lighter. Next step here, we're going to start highlighting up the face. So we're going to take some of the original tanned Veruna skin. We're going to apply that to the raised edges. I'm also going to take some of that neutral flesh tone, and I'm going to be applying it again in an even more concentrated area on the face. Again, just aiming to hit the nose, the cheeks, and the top of the brows, giving it a very defined sort of masculine look. With the face done, we're just going to finish up those glow effects by pulling out the magenta glow effect paint included in the set. And it's going to hit those white areas that we painted before. And with the glow effect in place, we're going to add a little bit of a specular highlight or a couple of little dots on the glowing areas with a mixed white and glow effect paint. And just while we're getting the last little bit of that glow effect sorted, I am going to be trying to tackle eyes on this model. So for that, you want to base coat the eye sockets with a black, paint in the oval shape of the eye with the white, and very delicately apply a nice thin straight line through that white to give the eye detail.
Without further ado, I think Harry's done an awesome job. Let's have a look at his finished result.
Watching, guys. We really appreciate the support here at the channel, and look, James keeps giving me models to paint. I'm going to keep painting for you all, and look, if you're enjoying what we do, leave us a comment, subscribe if you like us, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more infinity on the channel here. Catch you guys in the next one.